So this is one of those days where I'm sitting there. This is literally 11:20 this morning, and I'm putting together the show, and I'm basically got it all mapped out. Got a guest. We got what we want to talk about, the topics. I'm kind of putting in order. And I'm going, I guess we got to lead with, like, what's taking so long with all these hires? Like, there's nothing coming out, nothing's happening. And all of a sudden, things start to happen over the last 40 minutes on the internet. If you're not on the internet because you're hard at work, but you've locked us in here, you're in luck. Huge news out of Lake Charles, Louisiana. Ross Dellinger from Sports Illustrated was the first to have it. He reported about 15 minutes ago. Frank Wilson had resigned as the head football coach at McNeese. He reported about 10 minutes ago. Frank Wilson is finalizing a contract and agreed upon an offer to join Brian Kelly's staff at LSU. Just so happens, I got a co-host who knows a thing or two about Frank Wilson at LSU. I got to imagine this is a pretty exciting thing for you.
Look, I'm fired up about this. Look, as a kid from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, this man actually had me having interest, I should say, in going to Knoxville, Tennessee. That's how great of a recruiter he is. I got a chance to meet Frank my sophomore year in high school, and he was over at Tennessee with Coach O and Lane Kiffin. Funny how the world works, but dude, he's just a phenomenal recruiter. Obviously with ties to Louisiana, being a New Orleans kid, and just his pedigree for football, coaching multiple positions on the offensive side. I learned more from that man in the 2 years in college than I did in the NFL, and that's a lot to say because just the attention to detail he puts to the work, just going over the playbook and knowing what everyone on the field has to do. I'm pumped for this, man. I couldn't be more happy that Coach Kelly. I said it, man. Look, trust Coach Kelly, man. He doesn't ruin these coaching hire things. He knows what he's doing, and what a hire. I think you'll see this start really working dividends, especially when February rolls around with this recruiting all day, signing day.
So obviously Frank left the staff here in Baton Rouge and took a head coaching opportunity at Texas San Antonio. Got him to a bowl game first year. Things looked to be going really well, and then the momentum slipped a little bit. And he took a job at McNeese back in his home state of Louisiana, where he's got such strong relationships and has spent the majority of his entire life. And I think he really enjoyed his time there at McNeese. And it wasn't like the program was falling apart, but you do look up the salary, and it looks like he was making somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 a year to be the head coach at McNeese. And there's something to be said for being your own boss and running the show and you being the guy. There's also something to be said for taking a 3x pay raise and coming in where they're playing in front of 100,000 for a national championship as opposed to playing in the hole over there in Lake Charles, where you might swing on by Daryl's for a sandwich afterward, but I don't know if it's the most attention-grabbing national news. But this for LSU is a really, really big deal because when you saw Mickey Joseph leave for Nebraska and take that job at his alma mater, that's a guy with deep, deep ties in New Orleans. He's a high school legend there, has great relationships with the people in that city. And then you see Jabbar Jalouk join Billy Napier's staff in Florida, where he was with him at Louisiana Lafayette. And then you see those two guys at Javante Citizen's house yesterday recruiting a guy who was committed to LSU. LSU needs a staff member and some presence in Louisiana in a hurry, and this gives you that in a hurry, and it's really the best one out there. He's the best assistant coach with ties to Louisiana in the country for my money.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You just look at his track record, just all the guys that he personally recruited himself. I know we pulled up kind of Billy Napier's guys he's recruited from Louisiana. I love to see Coach Frank Wilson's 24/7 Sports, all the guys he's had from Louisiana, because it'd be a long list, and it'd be a bunch of 5 stars on that list. I tell the story all the time when Frank Wilson, we were at a junior day. I think it was actually a sophomore day at the stadium. And I was, young in the recruiting scene, not really knowing much of the guys. And it was a story of he was saying, man, look at that scrawny kid over there, man. He's probably like 155 pounds, but I'm telling you, that dude's a player. He's a player. He's got to be able to play. I'm like, that little scrawny kid, what is he going to be able to do? And that little kid was Odell Beckham Jr., and that was his when he was a sophomore in high school. He just knew he could see the talent, and that's what Coach Frank Wilson does, man. He's got to recruit his tail off. He's got to solidify a lot of these kids that are in the state that loves Louisiana State University. He's got to be, the nail in the coffin to get those deals done. So I'm super pumped about this hire.
So this is one of those where you wish you had a little more time, but it broke 5 minutes before we went on the air.
Yeah.
We do have Michael Ford is going to come and join us in the second hour. Michael obviously was in the backfield with Jeremy Hill. He's a Louisiana guy who was coached by Frank Wilson, so we'll get the perspective from him. But obviously we've got Jeremy here. Tell us about Frank being kind of the architect of your class. We've mentioned this many times in passing, but for those that don't recall year-by-year stuff, I was in the middle of covering LSU, so obviously I knew it well. But your class was Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Freak Johnson, Lael, yourself, Trey Turner, a ton of guys from inside the state of Louisiana that Frank really created a bond between you all and pushed it to the finish line and was really the architect of what was one of the best signing classes in terms of star power in recent memory.
Yeah, I think that definitely started. It's funny how that thing worked when Coach Frank, like I said, the power that he has as a recruiter, especially being a guy from Louisiana. He got Anthony Johnson, Freak Johnson, to commit to Tennessee.
Yep.
And that kind of started the whole thing, and that's kind of when we all started, getting that relationship with Coach Frank. Jarvis took a visit out there to that Tennessee camp, and I was like, okay, Tennessee may be buzzing a little bit. Let me check that thing out, what they got going over there. And then he took the LSU job, and then that's kind of when the things started to take off. And I think the beauty of that is they kind of knew how much talent was in that class. They just did a phenomenal job keeping us around each other, whether that was game day, whether it was summer camp, whether that was, doing junior days, sophomore days, just, doing stuff to keep us around each other, keeping us together and close as a family. And I remember like yesterday, Lael and I committed, fairly early in our junior years, and we called Jarvis, and he was like, Jarvis, man, you got to do it, bro. You got to do it. And then Jarvis like, yep, I'm gonna do it. Jarvis committed right after that, and then the classes started to come together perfectly, and that was all through the orchestration of Coach Frank Wilson. So I think Tiger fans are definitely gonna see his impact fairly quickly here.
Well, we know that he's going to do some recruiting. That's something he's fantastic at. But you mentioned when we were off the air just how good a running backs coach we are. Now, we don't have the information as to what position he'll be coaching. That hasn't emerged yet. This report's 12 minutes old. But what kind of a football coach was Frank Wilson on the field?
Yeah. I think for me, what allowed me to be, the player I was is the attention to detail. And when I say that is, as a running back, you only have so many assignments that you would particularly have in a play. But I think for me, what set me apart with Coach Frank Wilson, he wanted us to understand what all 11 guys' job was on the field, every single play, not just, hey, these run plays, you got to learn this. Every single play, you knew what everyone on the field's job was supposed to do, and that just allowed you to do your job at a lot faster pace, and the game just kind of came to you easy. And I think for us, just having that attention to detail every single day, never lacking at that, it allowed you to go out there and play fast and play confident. And so for me, I learned so much from him, just as far as the run game, the pass game, just being a better back on and off the field. I think that's something that, kind of goes overlooked with Coach Frank Wilson. He was on our butts, man. We'll talk to Mike about that. But, with our grades, he'd be, sitting us down and, going over all our grades, going if we missed a class and kind of holding you accountable, all those things that really matters in the long run. Coach Frank Wilson was doing that in the day out basis. So I was definitely appreciative to have him as a running back coach.
One of the things that I found so interesting with the room that you walked into, specifically the year before you played in 11, but more so also in 12 and in 13, is that in 11, that room was so crowded. We talk about it all the time. The season started with Spencer Ware really carrying the majority of the load, and then you'd have Michael Ford as kind of the speed back guy. Alfred Blue would come in late in games a little bit. And then Kenny Hilliard had a huge run in Tennessee that year, and then he kind of assumed the majority of the carries, but you still had all those guys plus Terrence McGee. Like, it was just a ton of guys, and there's only one football. And it seemed to me like in the interviews that we did, looking at the sideline, that nobody was frustrated or yelling or had any animosity. It was just a group that got along. I think there's something to be said for a guy being able to manage egos like that. You say how strict a disciplinarian he was, and I think the respect that you cultivate in the room just kind of creates that energy. Yeah,
it definitely did, and that's something that Coach Frank did a phenomenal job of, kind of just letting us know what's real, and it's not going to be any faking or fronting about what's going to happen, especially on game days. And I think for all of us, what made us comfortable in our roles, in that, hey man, I went to LSU, I'm a 4-star or 5-star guy, why am I not getting 20, 30 carries? We all knew you get hot, you pop a few, you're going to get the ball that game. And I think that's what kept us all hungry, is that, man, we want to pop some. We want to get to the second level. We want to make some plays, because they're not going to pull you out at that point. You start running high, you start making plays, coach going to leave you out there. And I think we all understood that, and it allowed us all to go out there. And when we did get our opportunities, try to make the most of them and really just have each other's backs as teammates.
And now LSU has released the statements. Let me see if I can read this. Associate head coach is what is on the Twitter feed. I'm reading through this quickly. Got a quote from Brian Kelly. He previously spent 6 years at LSU. just associate head coach is the only thing that is on this. So we'll see, what kind of, but you got to figure recruiting coordinator is probably going to be on there. And I would imagine running backs coach. There's been obviously some reports that Kevin Falk is going to be retained on staff. Brian Kelly got questions about that at the introductory press conference, said, I haven't had those conversations yet. So, no indication, but, Frank could coach another position. It's not not unheard of for guys to move spot to spot, but we'll update you as we return things. But official now from Louisiana State University, Frank Wilson headed back to Baton Rouge as the associate head coach of the Fighting Tigers, the first on-field assistant tabbed by Brian Kelly to join his staff here at LSU.